Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market.
Good morning and welcome to podcast number 7. My goodness, time is flying as we're having fun, isn't it, David?
It is. It's these weeks fly by because I think we're so busy in between right now. Market's good, spring market. It's still buzzing out there, and it's amazing how fast the time goes by between these podcasts.
It's really unbelievable. I see you're wearing a special shirt today.
Yeah, let me just show it there. It's game day today. Leafs and Habs. Big day. Got to get in the spirit. Start all day. Be in the spirit.
You know what? We need to really push the Leafs from every single angle, and I'm hoping that they really close out tonight. They're leading 3-1, and it'd be great if they did, and they got some much needed rest for the next series.
Yep. Got to take care of business, right? It's just like in real estate. You got an offer on the table. You got to deal with it right then and there. You got to take care of business. Leafs have to do the same thing. It's their opportunity tonight. Don't let this thing drag on. Give it the extra effort. Close the deal.
Close
As
the
you would
deal.
say, get the deal closed.
1000%, and move on to the next big thing.
Yeah.
Do we know who their opponent would be in the next round if they go through?
Yeah, it'll be Winnipeg. Winnipeg knocked out Edmonton 4 straight, so they're sitting at home watching this, getting rested, getting healed up. So the Leafs have to close the deal tonight, and maybe they get a couple days off to rest up for the next series. Otherwise, they're gonna, start right away against a rested team and be put at a disadvantage. So it's a big one. They're all big ones. Every time they play the Montreal Canadiens, they have to, it's not only a win for the Leafs, it's a loss for the Montreal Canadiens. So for us true Leaf fans, it's like a double win every time we beat them.
Yeah, there's a big rivalry there between those two teams, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm sorry to any Montreal Canadian listeners or viewers, but I've declared my allegiance.
So if you're a Montreal fan, this isn't going to be your favorite podcast for sure.
Right.
We're Leaf fans here.
Still happy to provide legal services to you, but we're going to be cheering for different teams. That's all.
We'll just charge you a little bit more. I'm kidding. Well, let's jump into the market. Wanted to give everybody a little bit of a synopsis of what's really going on out there. So we are seeing the number of showings decline month over month. Number of showings is going down. Number of offers is also going down. The average day on the market is very slowly increasing. Again, really important to note that it is still a really strong seller's market. We're just dropping off from the heavy peak that we had a couple of weeks ago. So important thing to note if you're thinking about selling, strongly encourage you to talk to your realtor and get your property up on the market. It's still a really strong seller's market. You just have to be a little bit more aware about where you price your property. But as long as you have good advice from your realtor and you price your property where it should be, you won't have any issues moving it. It's really the greedy sellers that we're noticing where properties are not moving and the market is not reacting well to properties being overpriced.
Well, that's interesting. And I'm sort of curious as to your take. The last few days, there's been some press about some agents that have gone to the market with a $1 purchase price on properties. So what's behind that rationale?
I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, and when I was 17, I actually started a business buying and selling on eBay. Not a lot of people know that. So I'm very familiar with the whole price, anything at $1, and it's the whole bid mentality. The problem with real estate is that you're dealing with such a high valued asset class that, most of the people out there are just not comfortable with this whole process of the eBay mentality where you're bidding on properties, right? So I think that strategy can really backfire. But for the right properties, like if you have a condemned property or a property that has been hard to sell in the past and you really want to expose it, it might be the strategy, but definitely not in all cases. And, there has been some negative press associated with that. And again, it's because you're dealing with people that are just not familiar with the bidding mentality that eBay is really built around, right? So this strategy is really coming down from eBay, from, have a bid at $1 and overexpose the property, and hopefully you get that one commitment where somebody really falls in love. Logic goes out the window. It's no longer a logical decision, it's an emotional decision. Your ego takes over and you overpay, right? So that's what the listing agent is hoping for when they utilize a strategy like that.
Yeah, and I think, if nothing else, they bought some publicity for it to the agent and the brokerage doing it. Even negative publicity is still publicity. I don't think that's the agent that I would want selling my home. Quite frankly, I think I'd want someone telling me, what's it really worth and what's a reasonable strategy to get qualified buyers to look at the property, and not just a parade of interested onlookers and people that say, hey, maybe I got an opportunity here to steal this, because it's not going to be sold to someone on a steal. Like, it's just not going to happen.
No.
Right. So, I think agents have to be careful with it. But look, some are using different strategies, even just basic, lowballing listing prices so that afterwards they could say, sold above asking. You got to be careful with the advice that you're getting from your real estate agent too.
You do. And, I always look at the context and what's really happening. Do you really want a lot of unqualified buyers through your property in the times of COVID? And my argument would be that you don't, right? Like, what you want to do is you want to price your property exactly where, that sweet spot is, get the qualified buyers in there. You only need one to really produce the results that you need. It's always great to have multiple offers, but even if you price the property properly, you can get one offer. It could be over asking. The seller can do very well, and then you're not exposing the seller to hundreds of people being through their home in the times of COVID, which in these times it's a tough strategy to really lean on.
Right, and there's a big difference between over asking and over fair market value.
Correct.
Right. If you've got a good agent working for you that finds a strategy that allows you to sell above what fair market value would be, by conventional opinion, not just the one agent, but if you really exposed it in a reasonable market, and this is the fair market value, but then you come up with a strategy where you actually get more than fair market value, that's when you're ahead of the game, because hopefully you're going to be buying your next property at fair market value, and if, or below. But if you've been able to sell above fair market value by utilizing one of these strategies, then you're obviously ahead of the game. So there's a big difference when I'm talking to clients about something that's over fair market value as opposed to over asking. Over asking, is sometimes meaningless if the listing was really low, just to attract offers.
Yeah, it's a subjective number, isn't it? It's a number that was chosen arbitrarily a lot of the times to encourage a multiple offer situation, right? But it's really getting that over market value that's really important. That's where the seller is going to really be ahead and benefit from utilizing the right realtor.
Right.
Versus over asking is more of a marketing gimmick than anything. But we saw, or we keep hearing these strategies of listing at $1. The other thing I would caution agents about utilizing that strategy is, are you really attracting a buyer that's qualified? And I'm talking about a mortgage qualification right now, right? Obviously, the seller, for example, has in their head that they're going to get $900,000. A buyer comes through and they're only pre-qualified for $800,000. Well, that buyer is never going to get into that property, right? So, is the listing agent wasting everybody's time here, right? Just to procure multiple offers and say that, hey, we have all this buzz. And again, my argument would be, in the middle of COVID, it's probably the wrong strategy to utilize.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you want qualified people looking at a property. You don't want a parade in there. You don't want curious onlookers and things like that. I don't think you want it in non-COVID times either, because, except, obviously there's a history of agents using open houses back in the day when there were real open houses and traffic go through, because just an opportunity for agents to meet potential clients. Right. So it was great to sit in an open house and meet people, and because you never know, that might lead you to, to be retained by them. So that doesn't happen like it used to. But still, you want qualified people coming in to look at a house, because you don't want to waste the time on it. You want to get the people in there, make legitimate offers, get it sold at fair market price or above, and then move on.
Yeah, and the more you can go through that qualification process before the person comes to see the house, the more likelihood that that is the right house and that is the right buyer for that property, right? So bear that in mind. If you're looking to sell, I mean, it's they say sales and marketing is a number game, and I mean, to a large degree it is. But I think the more you can go through a pre-qualifying exercise with a buyer before getting them in through the door, the higher chances are that is going to be the right house, that there are going to be no surprises when they're there. And if the buyer has the resources to be able to pull the trigger and afford the house, the mortgage is in place, then there's just that much more likelihood that the deal is going to go ahead and go through.
Yeah. And when deals don't go through, something happens, or they don't get finalized. Right now we're in a strong enough market that you have to look at it like there's going to be another opportunity. So we can't be as desperate to hang on to a deal that you sort of know is not good. Like there isn't really, it's not going smoothly, and if it's too hard in this market, it's probably not good, and it just might be time to move on. Cut bait, move on to the next one. You see sometimes agents, just trying to hang on to a deal. It's not sometimes the agents, sometimes it's the sellers or the buyers that are really dictating it, when the parties really aren't coming to an agreement. And sometimes you just have to move on. Instead of, there's a condition, we're at the condition date, now we need an extension, we need another 24 hours, now we need another 24 hours, we got to amend this, we need an amendment done. Like sometimes, don't you recognize at some point that this is just becoming too difficult, that maybe they really don't want the property and now they're tying it up, and you might be better off cutting bait and selling to somebody else?
Yeah. And we see this a lot when we see conditional offers on the sale of the buyer's property, right? And I always say to my agents when they call me, when it comes to the extension of those clauses, and I always say to them, guys, like, if the buyer is interested and they're doing everything they can to market their own property and sell, sometimes if you give them a release and say, you know what, we've given you one opportunity, we're going to release and put the house back on the market. Sometimes that's going to light a fire under the buyer and say, you know what, this price that I have, I'm high. I need to do something, and I need to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this property here, right? So it does create motivation. And the other thing it does is it opens the house up for competition again, right? So not only does it push the buyer to make a decision, but it also gives the seller the ability to go back to the market and see if they can produce any other offers or get any other competitive bids on the property. So you're absolutely right. Sometimes you just have to draw that line in the sand. And by no means am I saying, don't do the deal, because it's all about doing the deals, but sometimes it's doing the deals in the right way to protect whoever the parties that you're representing. And I think that's really, really important and key.
Yeah. And agents have to make sure that the clients understand how the offer system works as well. And with sign backs, we're seeing issues on that a lot of times, because what does it mean that it's irrevocable until 5 p.m. on Thursday? So, we had one situation. Sorry.
That's an amazing topic. I mean, we're seeing a lot of issues with that, right? Because again, agents are submitting offers that are unconditional. It's a strong seller's market. There's not a lot of inventory out there. And sometimes when a house does come on the market, buyers are quick to react, right? So we are seeing a lot of unconditional offers. And like you said, there is an irrevocability and the offer is signed under seal. So really important for everybody to really know what that means.
Right. So we can talk about it now, or we can have that as a topic for next week. So I know we had a big agenda for today of things we wanted to get to, but I think it's a good thing that we should talk about and explain, how the irrevocability works. So maybe we do that for next week's podcast, because I don't want to take away from today's agenda, because we're going to talk more sports. So we can't take time away from talking sports and real estate in the same conversation.
Absolutely. So Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
So sports. Let's kick off from our conversation from last week. And I know that we were talking a lot about consistency, right? And how it kind of gets applied to business.
Yeah.
And what always comes to my mind when I watch sports, and right now it's hockey and basketball season, but even in basketball, these are professional players that have been playing basketball from the age of 4, right? A lot of the times. And when they step up to the free throw line, you see players still mimic that shot and practice it, right? Before shooting it, right?
Right.
And business and sales is really no exception, right? And in order to be a professional and in order to really excel at your field, you really need to approach business and sales from that same viewpoint, where you need to practice, where you need to train, where you need to study and be on top of the latest technology and really invest in yourself. And that consistency translates so much from sports into business. It's really incredible.
No, it's really true. There's such a parallel, and you watch it, and it's not just anyways. It's the best in the world. You watch LeBron James at the foul line. He has a routine. You know that even game day, he was in the gym practicing his free throws. They'll do a certain number of free throws. They're making sure his feet are in the right place. He's making sure his elbow angle is correct. His fingers are on the ball in the right position. And he bounces it a certain number of times. He's got a rhythm, a pattern before he shoots. He practices. And one of the greatest things about the greatest athletes of all time, what they all have in common, they generally out-practice everybody else. Gretzky and LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and you go on Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson this past week at age 50 wins. Phil Mickelson knows how to putt. He's been putting, how many putts has he made in his whole life? But every time he goes to putt, he gets into the same routine, right? And he's practiced that routine, and he practiced it that day, because you perform based on the way you practice and train. So it's no different in our professions. We have to stay on top of things. We have to look at documents, we have to look at our systems, look at our techniques, deal with stuff, have these type of conversations. So when we are in action, we're prepared, we're trained, we know what to look for, we know how to deal with it.
It's muscle memory at the end of the day, right? It just kind of comes to you when you do it, when you rehearse it, and when you practice it, and when you prepare, right? And when you put in the hard work, then when you're put in front of the client or in front of the situation, it's just muscle memory. You just go. You reach deep down inside, and it's amazing what our bodies are capable of, and the information that flows out of you. And if you've trained for that moment and you've prepared, then you have nothing to worry about.
Right. And it's the repetition of doing it and making sure that you're on top of it. Like, your agents dealing with an agreement of purchase and sale, when they're in a busy market like today, they might be drafting, putting offers in all the time. So that's great. It's great training for the next offer because they're in the process of doing it, as opposed to there being a lull in the action when the market's quieter and a month can go by before they're actually putting an offer together, right? When they're in this type of market, they're actually training themselves better because they're preparing more offers, looking at it, thinking about the differences and how they want to present it. And they're doing it on a repetition basis in a short time frame, right? As opposed to, it's January and it's freezing outside and the market's soft and client wants one offer done. I haven't done an offer for 3 weeks or a month or something, right? You're learning to ride the bike again to some extent, right?
Yeah, it'll take a little bit longer for you to go through those clauses and to make sure you have, all the right clauses to protect your clients and to make sure all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, right? But
Right.
if you're doing it on a regular basis and you're practicing, and this is what goes to all the agents that might not be that busy, might be semi-retired, or might be taking it a little bit easier, is make sure you stay on top of writing offers and practicing and doing all those little things that you used to do when you were a little bit more active, because it is going to keep you sharp, right? And that's
Right.
really, really important. Consistency and practice and really putting that time in will make a really big difference.
And that's why you and I both encourage the agents to attend your training sessions and the webinars, that we participate in and things. It doesn't matter how many years you've been practicing,
Yeah.
how many years you've been in the business, you're a seasoned veteran, but there's new things that you're dealing with right now. You've never been in the market like we are in 2021 in the middle of COVID. And there's different nuances and there's different strategies to be employed and there's different drafting and different clauses that you have to use or you got to tweak and everything. You have to stay on top of these things. Just like LeBron knows how to throw a free throw. He knows how his feet and his hands are supposed to be, but now he's got a bit of a sore shoulder or something because he just got banged. So he knows he's got to make a bit of an adjustment all of a sudden. So he had to work on that this morning in practice for tonight's game because he's got to adjust something in what he's doing because he's got a bad shoulder or something like that, right? It's the same. You got an offer coming in, May of 2021. It's not the same as May of 2020. There's something different going on, and you got to stay on top of these things and have your routines, know what to look for, but be on top of the latest strategies and what's happening with the market.
Yeah. I used to play table tennis in a really high level. And Dave, let me tell you, if I didn't go through my whole regular warm-up routine, 15-minute forehand, 15-minute backhand, down the line, right? And then, build on the basics. And I didn't actually go through that routine, my game would suffer, and it would suffer tremendously. Like, I would not be able to play at the level I normally play with, no matter what I do. Because what happens is, you're missing those basics that you're building on, right? And it's all about muscle memory, right? So business is the same, right? If you just walk into a listing presentation and you didn't rehearse, you didn't prepare, you didn't pull listings, you didn't do all the things you have to do to really prepare for that listing presentation, it's not going to go as well as the agent that pulled all the market comps, pulled all the statistics, prepared his presentation, rehearsed it, is dressed, is presented, and is ready to go. You're just not going to have the same effects.
Right. It's true. So it's amazing how you can, all these years you've been in business and everything, but you can go back and draw on stuff that you did as a table tennis player. In my days, we called it ping pong. I don't know if you ever call it ping pong.
Well, that's a very big faux pas in when you play at a high level, right? You don't call it ping
Don't call
pong.
it ping pong anymore. It becomes table tennis.
Yeah.
Look, and I grew up as a kid. I played a lot of soccer, and there were certain things that we did at the beginning of our practice, and then certain things we did again at the end of the practice. That's all it was. It's muscle memory. And then I got into basketball. Same thing. Our coaches, we'd start off, we had to hit a certain number of free throws, layups. We had to hit a certain number of layups, right? Which is supposed to be the easiest. But no, you had to, everybody's got to make 5 right-handed layups. Everybody's got to make 5 left-handed layups. And then we're going to go to the foul line. Everybody's going to take their foul shots. And then we're going to get into some team play and work on some other plays and stuff like that. And even the plays, you rehearse it over and over again. You do it over again. You want to know what the variations are, what the options are when you get to certain, pick and roll situations and screens and how to do it. And then
Sure, right, David? Like,
you got to keep doing it.
yeah, when that clear line opens up to the basket and you hesitate, it's going to close, right? But if the clear line opens up to the basket and you're like, I'm going for it, I've done this 100 times in practice, it's second nature, and the basket's going to go in.
Right. And you don't want to be thinking about it at the time. You want to just be reacting.
You just want to react, right?
You're going to see the plays developing, and you know that there should be two options, and you're going to do A or B, but you're not sure which one. But then when it presents itself, you don't hesitate, and you go with what's open, and you get it. I'd like to say that I finished it with a dunk, but at 5'9", it was it was usually a layup as opposed to a dunk.
But David, that's kind of the perfect point, is if you want to dunk, then you know that you have to put a step ladder down below the basket. And in business, you can do it because you know what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are. And you can give yourself that kind of advantage in the field by putting in the right work and practicing, right?
Right.
And that could be the difference that you bring to the table is, if you know that, for example, you're not good at paperwork, then hire an assistant that is going to help you with your paperwork, and you can go out there and prospect, right? You can give yourself an unfair advantage that sometimes you can't in sports, in business, by mitigating some of these factors and putting in the right tools and having the right mentors and having the right resources that are going to help you through some of these situations. But it's all in how you prepare and how consistent you are with your habits, and small changes add up to really big results over time.
And that leads us into, one of the other really important things that we can take from sports into our business lives, and that's the team concept. And you're an agent out there, by adding an assistant or teaming up with somebody, it's amazing how that can improve your ability. It frees you up to be able to get out there because you've got somebody else doing some of the administrative part of your job and answering the phone and making sure you don't lose that call that was coming in while you're doing a presentation and there's somebody else trying to contact you. There's another person there. So you start building a team, and and part of your team is obviously you guys in your brokerage and all the administrative support and everything that you have. And the same thing in my office. We're so team oriented in the way we practice law. We want all of our clients to be familiar with a lot of people in our office because they're going to come in contact with them. We want to have confidence in our team, and we need our team because we can't always be available to answer every phone call and every email. We need other people to do it. So we need good training, good people, and they have to be team players themselves, understand their role, right? And how do you as a leader, as your team leader, develop that team concept amongst your staff and people?
Well, you know what? It really comes down to culture, right? And I think that's the differentiating factor in kind of any organization. And here we really build our culture from the ground up. So it starts with a really solid mentoring department and program that we have. So any realtor that joins our brokerage, we pair them up with a more experienced realtor, and it's really a two-way relationship. It's a give and take. So the mentor always gives something to the mentoree, and the mentoree gives back to the mentor as well. And then over time, as the person being mentored is up to speed and has the tools and knowledge, we ask them to mentor a new agent all over again, and the whole cycle repeats. And what that does is, it builds a culture of realtors and staff and everybody here within Sutton Summit working together and having a very sharing culture and very inclusive culture, right? Where normally in a commission environment where people, have to really work for their money and my client's my client, it can be a very combative environment, right? So that's something we're very, very proud of and is definitely a big difference maker within the brokerage environment. And I've been part of other brokerages as well before I got involved in buying Sutton Summit, and it's something that always really stood out to me as to what happens here at Sutton Summit Realty. And it is a big difference maker. That whole, let's work together, let's share, let's help each other. It's a feeling that's really unlike anywhere else at any other brokerage environment that I've seen.
Well, and that gives you an advantage in terms of attracting good people and keeping good people, both in terms of agents and administrative people as well. They feel that they're productive, they're part of a team, they're valued, that you care about them as well. And by caring about them, they're caring about your brokerage, and they're coming up with some of the thoughts and ideas to help things improve, right?
Yeah.
So,
and some of my agents, if they have if they want to brainstorm, or if they want to run an idea, or if they want to ask one of their colleagues about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think? A lot of the times they reach out to other peers and other agents in the office, which is absolutely amazing. We hired an amazing administrative employee from a different brokerage, and she was telling me that agents were walking to the photocopier with paperwork like this because they don't want another agent to see what they're doing, right?
right.
And that just doesn't happen here. We're very open, we're very transparent, and we really have an abundant mind frame, which versus a scarcity mindset. There's so much business out there, right? And if we can work together, we can help one another, we're that much stronger. And that's really, the foundation of our success when it comes to culture.
Yeah. And I've seen that in your office over the years, which has always been fun to see. Like every time I've attended an event there, a social event, or whether doing a seminar or something, you see the agents come there, and they're so happy to see each other,
Yeah.
and to catch up with each other, and to run things by each other, everything. And that's one of the things that I hope COVID doesn't really kill, because everybody's sort of gotten into a bit of a pattern of working from home now, and coming to the office when they got to drop something off, as opposed to coming in and hanging out. And now we're doing webinars by Zoom, and it's a little different, because it's not just attending the webinar, it's the time before the webinar starts and the time after it finishes, and you have just a room full of people that get to interact. So hopefully we get back to that. Because I certainly miss that too, but I've always enjoyed the camaraderie that I see amongst the agents. I'm talking like some of the seasoned veterans too, that
and it's
happy to see each other and run something by each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just seeing the newer realtors gravitate to the older realtors, and the older realtors taking them under the wings and showing them the ropes, like it's just it's phenomenal. It's great to see. So and something we get to witness on an everyday basis, which is really cool, and the relationships that and the networking that happens, that's formed, as a broker owner, it's great to see it as well, and something that I'm very proud of. And I think in a commission sales environment, it's tough to really achieve that balance. Agents want to take care of themselves and look after themselves at the end of the day, but that really isn't what happens at Sutton Summit Realty. And it all starts from hiring, right? Like we go through an intensive interviewing process when we hire agents, and we want to make sure they're a good fit, because all it takes is one agent, to really ruin that culture. And we're very, very, very careful of who we bring in, to make sure that we keep building in that culture and keep hiring the right people, and making sure that they really fall into what we're looking for to build Sutton Summit to the next level.
It's a really interesting comment, because as you know, we're in a hiring mode at our firm right now. We're looking for a lawyer. We've been looking for another clerk to add, and we met with, and Jonathan and I've been interviewing a lot of people, because we're going through the same process. Like, we're really particular about who's going to join our team. It's not just hiring someone that's going to be here for a few months and get us through a busy period, or maybe they last a year or two, and if it doesn't work, we'll get the next person. Like, we just don't look at it that way. We're always looking to build, to add the next piece to our team. And how can we do that? And we met with someone last night, a seasoned clerk, and all the qualifications and everything. And the one thing that I have had hesitated, and we were talking about it, is she's been at small firms, sort of working for one lawyer most of the time that she's worked, and she's, for a long time, she's very qualified, could handle everything, but she's used to working very independently and answering to nobody other than one lawyer. And I can't, based on her personality, I'm just not confident that she would fit into our team environment, where people would be coming to her to ask her questions, and I could just see her like saying, like, leave me alone, I'm doing my job, do your job, as opposed, right? She's just coming from a different type of culture. So although she's qualified and she could do a lot of, I think, like, we're really hesitating on her just for that reason. She just she's not used to a team environment at all. And I think it might be more disruptive than adding someone. I'd rather have someone that wants to be a team player, that is coming out of an environment that, is grown up that way. Maybe is grown up playing sports. When I look at a resume, I look at what their hobbies and interests are, and see what they are.
I think that's one of the most important sections on the resume, isn't it? Because I want to know how you spend your time. I want to know what drives you. I want to know what keeps you grounded. I want to know who you are as a person, right? And it's great to look at skill sets and education, and that plays into those conversations too. If you have a whole bunch of degrees and you're motivated, that you have good work ethic, right? But I think looking at team sports on resumes and hobbies, really, really important.
Right, because people that have played sports and have trained for sports understand that they can play a role. And we talked a little bit last week, that something you and I both learned from playing sports: a team is only as good as their weakest players, right? Yeah. And we don't look at our weakest players in our firm. Like, I don't look at anybody as being weak. So it's sort of the wrong term in our business environment, but it's more of understanding what their roles are. And someone can be really good at their role, but they may not be able to do what somebody else does in a different role. Like, certain lawyers are really good at the law and really good technically and really good at grinding out the work and dealing with issues and things like that. They might not have natural marketing skills to go out and bring in more business or something. That doesn't make them less valuable than someone who does get out there. It just means they play a different role, and they can play just as valuable role. So we want to encourage people based on their strengths. So we're not focusing on anything as a weakness. What do you like to do? What's your personality type? What are you comfortable doing? What do you want to do? How can we help you achieve that? As opposed to saying, well, yeah, you've been grinding, doing all this work, but now we want you to all of a sudden go out there and bring in more business. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, you have to,
the analogy is
put a round peg in a square hole.
Right. Like, imagine putting an offender into the goalie position. How many goals do you think the opposing team is going to score? Right. It's not going to be a favorable outcome. And the same thing is, if you have a lawyer that's really strong in the law, but is a little less comfortable with sales, how successful is your firm going to be if you make him the director of your sales operation, right? So making sure that people fit into the role and play into their strengths is really important in business. And that's what a really good leader does, is they recognize what position and what value set people bring to the table.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I coached my son's hockey teams at different times, not because I was a good coach, but because sometimes there was nobody else to do it. So someone had to step up. But, I had enough experience, not necessarily in hockey growing up, but in other sports. And I would take principles from my soccer training, from my basketball concepts, and bring it to my hockey team on how to defend. But one of the things I always focused on is How do I get the most out of everybody? Find a role for each one to play to achieve. And I remember one year we were going to playoffs and we were playing a team that had, one superstar sort of player. And I took a guy who was like one of our third line grinding winger, great skater, but he couldn't score, if he was playing with no goalies ever, the worst hands, but he could play hard, play tough, and he could skate. And I said, okay, and I told him in front of the team, you're going to be the key guy in these playoffs because you're going to be you're going to be shadowing that guy, that superstar on the other team. And I want, your job is to make sure he never touches the puck. You're always between the puck and him. I don't care if you touch the puck the whole game. Doesn't matter. We have other guys that will get the puck and score a couple goals for us. We don't need you to do that. We need you to just annoy this guy, be in his face the whole time. Don't let him touch the puck. And that's what he did. And he just went out there. He was determined to do it. And he was like, of our 9 forwards, he's probably number 9 if you're going to rank them, because he can never score, but he can skate and play hard. And he was determined. And that's what he did. And he just stayed with this. So he took that guy out of the game. The guy didn't score. We had enough guys that scored a couple goals. We win. Afterwards in the dressing room, all of a sudden, all our players and our star players fell in love with this guy because they saw that, he was the key to the game, right? And we found the right role for him, and he found the right role. And now everybody else appreciated what he did because they saw the results.
Yeah, imagine if you didn't give him that responsibility. He was just skating out there in the ice, not being able to score and not having a purpose. I mean, completely different than, having a really important purpose of, making sure this person doesn't touch the ball, frustrate him, getting between him, and that's really your only responsibility is
Right.
him, right? Now
Right.
he has a purpose. He's a strong skater. He plays with heart, and he's out there making a difference. And you know what? If you can empower your agents or your staff or people around you, I always say that I think the most important job of a leader is to create other leaders.
Yeah,
right.
that's a
And the
great
more
point.
leaders you can create, the more you're going to be the more everybody's going to benefit, right? And again, it's that
Right.
abundance versus scarcity mentality. And a lot of people will say, well, you know what if I promote him, or if I give him this authority, or if I clip his wings and let him go, I'm going to lose him, right? And I think, again, having that balance and just understanding that creating other leaders is going to really help you. And sometimes, you are going to lose that person by really unclipping his wings and letting him fly, but you just don't know where that person is going to help you in your business down the line, or maybe that person is going to start a business that's going to directly help you, and that person is going to lift you up as they go up in life as well. But nothing more rewarding than creating a leader and like really unclipping his wings and believing in them, and really letting them flourish and fly out there in the world.
Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, like you're creating a certain culture, and you hear that in sports all the time too. We have to change the culture in our locker room and things like that, right? And and that's the off ice stuff, or the off the basketball court stuff, because and a lot of that comes down to is everybody accepting their role and working to achieve a common goal. And how can I help the team? What do I have to do to improve myself? If I improve myself, I improve the team. So you use the same concepts in business. You want to create that right culture in your office. You want to have everybody. We need our admin people doing their job properly. How can we help to improve them? We need our accounting people doing their job. We need our junior law clerks doing their role. We need our senior law clerks doing what they do. We need our associates doing what they do, and they need me and Jonathan as the partners to do our job properly and provide proper support. And if everybody does that, we all improve as a group, and we provide better service to our clients. And while we're doing that, we're looking at how we meet with everybody in our office annually and do a review, because part of it, it's not just what should your salary be for next year or things like that. That's a small part of the conversation. Is what's your role? Are you happy doing what you're doing? What do you want to do? Have you grown the way you want to grow has anything changed? Or because you maybe got exposed to them, you're happier doing that than doing something else. We want to hear from them. What about our systems? How can you give us some input on what we should be doing better or what change we should be making? We need all that input too, because we want to grow together. Like, we never want someone to come to us and say, oh, I think I have to leave because I can't, so I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I can't do that here. Well, like, why not? Why can't you? We want a culture where, yes, if you want to do X, Y, and Z, you can do it right with us. How do we help you achieve that? Why should you go somewhere else to do that when we can make that happen right here? Right?
Yeah, and culture is not something that can change overnight.
No.
But you can make small adjustments on an everyday basis that will have a really large impact, and especially when it comes to culture, right? And a lot of it is lead by example and get your people involved, have a strong mission, vision, value system. Make sure that all your staff, all your agents really buy into it. And again, this happens over time, right? So if you have a business and you're not happy or you're not proud with where your culture is, the worst thing you can do is really be hard on yourself and expect things to happen really quickly, because they don't. It's one of those things where it really takes time to build a great culture. It takes years and years and years and a lot of work, right? So make a plan, sit down, start from the basics, and start making small changes every day, right? So which will add up to a really big outcome over time.
Yeah, you're right. It's ideally, we'd love to flip on a switch and make it work the way, but in practice, it doesn't work that way. You have to have, you have to be open to it. First of all, you have to put systems in place. You have to be listening as much as you're telling or dictating to others. And some of it just has to happen over time. And some of it happens as well with your hiring practices and hiring the right team players to go forward, and gradually losing some of the personnel that maybe that aren't team players.
And I was going to say, touch on that. And I mean, I think that might be even more important than hiring the right people, is making sure that, the people who are not a good fit are not part of your organization. And there's probably nothing more empowering than going through that process and saying, you know what, love you to death, but we're not a good fit for each other, right? And we do that with agents too, unfortunately. We hate doing it. But if you have one agent that is not following the rules, or not behaving in a certain manner out there in the marketplace, our reputation is very important to us, right? And the reputation of our agents. And we have no issues having those tough conversations with our agents, just because we want to make sure that the reputation of all our agents and the company comes first.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing how we parallel that in doing these for our respective businesses. And our businesses are very different, because we're just in different, both real estate related, and but a law firm is different than a brokerage. It's just naturally different. But yet we think about it, so many of the similarities in the way we approach how we do it, and it's really unbelievable how so much of it goes back to our youth and our training and our upbringing in sports, and our continuing love of sports and watching, because we still get educated by just being fans of sports, and watching how championship teams, what they go through, the effort that they got to go through to become a championship team, whether you're TFC through their run, or you follow what happens in the NBA or the NHL or anything. It's not easy. It's not easy. And it's a lot of effort, and a lot goes into that in terms of the team building, the culture, all that. It's not purely skill.
Yeah. When Masai Ujiri made the decision of trading DeMar DeRozan, I mean, that was, I looked at that decision as a business decision first and foremost, right? And I mean, as a business owner, I mean, I was petrified of that decision. Yeah. Absolutely petrified of that decision. But, my office went through a very similar decision on a very similar scale and magnitude over the past year. And, it was a scary time
Mhm.
for us. But looking at it in hindsight, it was absolutely the best decision that we've made, and the results have been extraordinary. And sometimes making those bold decisions as a business owner, they're really tough. Probably one of the toughest things you can do.
Right.
But as long as you're coming from a good place, right, and you're making it for the right reasons, things fall into place.
Yeah, and those are the hardest decisions. And like I've mentioned before, when we hire, like we're trying to hire for life. Like we know it's not always going to work out that way, but we just have that mindset. On the other hand, we also recognize that sometimes just like in sports, there's addition by subtraction. And sometimes if we have to recognize when there's an issue or a problem, and sometimes you're better off by subtracting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because it does affect how you do business, how your culture is, how everybody else is. And that's part of team building too. Like we had a problem in our office a few years ago, with someone, and we had a lot of other really good quality people that were really getting annoyed that we weren't taking action, or what they thought, like, get rid of this person already. And the fact that we were hesitant to do it wasn't good, because they were looking at like, what are you guys doing? Like, this isn't good, and you should be taking action against this person. So, but we just never like to do that. We try to give more opportunities, correct the ways and everything. It's always a last resort. But finally, when we did it, it was like, why didn't we do this sooner? Because it's really right for the person that's no longer with us, because that person should be somewhere else. That'd be better for them anyways. But the benefit that we got, the addition by subtraction, was huge.
Yeah.
Everybody else felt so much better about our place, because you just sometimes don't realize how negative someone can be in impacting everybody else and making it uncomfortable for them to work.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think looking at these professional teams, the other thing that really stands out to me, David, is the level of mentorship that happens, and the coaching, right? And how many people are involved.
Right.
There's is it 12 people in an NBA team?
Yeah. 12 on an active roster.
On an active roster, right? So there's 12 players, but I mean, the support staff behind the scene, the trainers, the coaches, the scouts, the management. I mean, the system in place behind them is just so powerful, right? And I think whenever I see a successful business person, I always see a successful team behind them, but I also see successful mentors, right? In terms of coaching, and in terms of all that in play as well. So podcast number 8, David, I'd love to talk about mentors and what they kind of bring to the table, and coaches and consultants and stuff like this, because I think every single successful business owner has a good support system around them, that pushes them and motivates them, and helps them with some of those value added services as well, and tapping into some of those resources, and how important that is to business. And I kind of want to talk about the 3 mentors that have been in my life for the last 10 years, and kind of what they bring to the table as well, and what they've done for me, because I couldn't have done, and I couldn't have succeeded to the level where I have without their help as well.
Well, it's a great topic, and I've had quite a few along the way as well. So I think that's something great to discuss next week, and we can also have our discussion on irrevocability and what that means as part of that. That might be a good thing to talk about too. So I'm already looking forward to next week.
Awesome. Well, so Mike, have a great productive week, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our conversation on sports. It was a 2-part episode, but again, I it's just amazing how sports have shaped our respective businesses, and there's so many parallels that can be drawn, and every day that I watch sports, I always, think about how I can make my team better, how I can make my business better, how I can implement some of the things that I'm learning into our daily business. And I hope you guys do the same.
Yeah, we do. And looking forward to tonight's game. Go Leafs, go.
Go Leafs, go.
And we'll see everybody for our podcast number 8 next week.
See you guys next week. Have a great week. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market and dive deep to understand the issues affecting buyers, sellers, investors, and businesses. If you love real estate as much as we do, sit back, relax, and gain an insider's edge to the exciting world of real estate. David Gorski is a broker and the owner of Sutton Summit Realty, a powerhouse brokerage providing guidance to over 180 realtors. And David Korman is a partner at Kormans LLP, a respected law firm specializing in residential and commercial real estate transactions, with offices located in Toronto, Mississauga, and Markham.